We're ready to start whenever you are.
Hello, Ambassador Kamal and Ambassador Aitimova. Thank you so much from the University of Pittsburgh. We're really pleased that we can have another semester with you, Ambassador Kamal, and the Ambassadors Club. And we're looking forward to learning much more about the United Nations and to hear, starting off, hear some of your thoughts really generally about your work in diplomacy at the UN and what you think students need to be thinking about. What are the big questions that we should be trying to keep in mind as we embark on a new semester learning about the United Nations. So thanks once again, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be with you at Pittsburgh, particularly since Professor Smith and I have been working together for years in different incarnations. And so it's a pleasure to be with Pittsburgh now, and I'm impressed by the large size of this class and the obvious interest that everybody has in participating in this class on the United Nations. We're going to be spending a whole semester together. And today, for the opening session, we will be discussing the relationship between power and diplomacy in the UN. And our distinguished panelist is Ambassador Aitimova of Kazakhstan, who happens to be the president of the International Association of Permanent Representatives. So she is the boss of all the ambassadors. And all of us are both scared of her and in love with her. And we are not sure as to whether it is the fear or the love which is more dominant where she is concerned.
Only love.
Kazakhstan is unfortunately a country that most people do not know too much about at Pittsburgh. And so I'm going to ask her first to tell me something about Kazakhstan. Is it a small country? Is it a big country? Is it in Latin America? Is it in Africa? Where is it located? What makes it tick? What's good about it? What's bad about it? And then we'll take it from there. So the power part of the discussion will come first. And then we'll go to the diplomacy part of the discussion for today. Ambassador Aitimova, you have the floor.
First of all, I thank Ambassador Kamal for this opportunity to take responsibility before future President of United States, future State Secretaries, and future Permanent Representative of United States, or not only to United Nations. I would like to thank Professor Smith and for this your auditorium, very respect one, because you are our future. So we have to show our huge respect, because future are not only in our hands, but in your hands too. Thank you very much, Ambassador Kamal, for this great and very expected question. Kazakhstan is really a very young country. Just 20 years ago, on the political map, such kind of country as Kazakhstan, the Republic of Kazakhstan, has appeared. Not geographically one. Geographically, Kazakhstan is located on the line of the geographical line of Europe and Asia. I was born myself in the western part of Kazakhstan, that is in Europe. And my husband, of course, was born in Asia, because he was born in southern part of Kazakhstan. So my country is very modest one. Number 9 in the world. It means all Western Europe countries together, that is our territory, or more than 5 times of France, or of course more than 5 times of the state of Texas. So this is our country, and population is not so big, 17 million, and you can find the representatives, diaspora, and huge community of almost 140 nations with 45 religious denominations. Kazakhstan is in the middle of crossing Christianity, Buddhism, like Confucians, and Islam. So that's why probably we have very multicultural and multi-religious society in our country. It is good, absolutely, because we are enriching from this rapprochement of cultures, traditions, customs, and of course languages. Kazakhstan is not big by size, but Kazakhstan is actually full of raw materials, full of mineral resources, starting from oil, gas, and so on. So if you remember from your school time, the table from chemistry, the table, Mendeleev's table of chemical elements, you can find in my country 99%, almost 99% of all mineral resources and chemical elements of that table in my country. And what could I say? We are highly literate population. 99.8% of our population can read and write. And of course, we have a very active gender balance, because 80% in some universities, 75% of our students are girls. So you can imagine what kind of women representative you can find in all levels of our governmental and official structures, and not only, but in business structures too. But we think that it's not enough. 25.
What do you mean, you want 100%?
We would like to have 50-50, but it doesn't happen. In our parliament, two houses parliament, we have 22-25% in one house, a little bit more than in a lower house. We have two houses, as I mentioned. And of course, it's 22 and 25, it's not bad, absolutely, if we compare with another countries. But we would like to have and to succeed for 50-50. That will be real gender balance.
I'm very impressed by the rich resources of Kazakhstan. There's no doubt that you are a major power, and you are a major power along with the 99% of the Mendeleev chemicals that you have in your country. You are a very rich country where oil is concerned, because I am told that your oil resources are equal to the oil resources of the Persian Gulf. And your only problem is that you don't know how to get this oil into the market, because you are a landlocked country. And so you have been drafting two different pipelines, one in the west through Turkey and one in the east into China. And this will make you a major influence in the world, because when China begins to absorb Kazakh oil, that is going to change the whole structure of the energy equation in the world. So you have an enormous role to play in the energy structure of the world. And energy is, after all, the key to development. And so you are obviously a very lucky country, because you have it all. You are highly educated. Your women are tough. And so...
Enough strong.
No, I mean, if you are 80% of your graduates are women, that in itself is a sign of great strength. And so there's no doubt that you are the country of the future, and that it is an error on the part of us in Pittsburgh not to know more about you. We deserve to know more about you. But I want to bring you to a slightly different subject now.
Yes.
You were part of the Soviet Union, and you were a key part of the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union its power in the bipolar world was nuclear power. The Soviet Union was a nuclear power. And all those nuclear weapons of the Soviet Union were tested and stored in Kazakhstan. You are the person,
main of that.
You are the one who was holding on to all those nuclear weapons.
Absolutely.
Because they were all being tested in Kazakhstan. And so you are or were a major nuclear power. And then for some reason, which I still can't understand, you decided to give it up. And I want you to explain to me, when you have such strong nuclear capacity, why did you want to give it up?
Absolutely essential question, because of my country has vast territory, as I mentioned before. During Soviet time, without of course informing Kazakhstani's population, we have been used like nuclear weapon testing area, like testing polygon, and it was established in Semipalatinsk nuclear weapon in Semipalatinsk area as nuclear weapon test polygon like area. So it was above grounded and undergrounded explosions during 40 years. Using that nuclear testing area, we suffered, and it were almost 500 nuclear tests have been exploded, and with the territory like modern territory of Germany, today's territory of Germany, and with the 1.5 million population who lived at that area and who still living there. And of course we suffered so much because we didn't know what's happened, what kind of explosions. We didn't have absolutely awareness about it. And only after taking independence, we decided that it is too dangerous for us, and we closed. On the moment of the collapse of Soviet Union, we in Kazakhstan had kept 80% of nuclear power of Soviet Union on our territory and in our hands. And of course it was big temptation to keep it and to announce to the international community that we are another nuclear weapon status country and we are so powerful. But because we suffered so much, and we are generally and naturally, we are peaceful people, hospitable people. So we decided that enough is enough. We didn't want to have any kind of nuclear tests on our territory. And the first decree of the president of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, was to close unilaterally. We shut down Semipalatinsk nuclear test site. What does it mean? We refused from nuclear weapon status country, and we didn't want anymore to have the second largest nuclear testing polygon area in the world, and we didn't want to keep number 4 power of nuclear weapon in our hands. So from that time, we are very, very active in international fora like United Nations. We consequently are active in disarmament and non-proliferation issues. You just imagine if we would keep this nuclear weapon, plus keeping in mind that Kazakhstan, we are number 2 of the world deposit of uranium. What kind of another dangerous country should be appeared on the political and geographical map? That's why we think that we did absolutely right gesture in order to integrate into international community with open eyes, with predictable behavior and with transparency and with peaceful activity for benefit for all population in the world.
I'm not sure whether your decision was correct or wrong. Because you had the power.
I can reply immediately.
No, but
I had
we have a difference of opinion. You had the power.
We
You gave it up.
That's why I would like to share with our friends who is in this auditorium. You know, I was also 20 years ago, I have been a little bit younger than now. Nevertheless, I was in my president's team. I was the member of parliament of my country at that time. So, and inside, of course, I supported officially to close this nuclear weapon test site. But from deeply inside, time to time, I could catch myself that, probably if we would keep this power, probably we will be a very powerful nation and country in the world. But when, after my parliamentary time, my president asked me to take the position as the first ambassador of Kazakhstan to Israel. You can imagine, we are majority of my population and myself, we belong to Islam by culture, by social, by some traditions. We are not Orthodox, of course, country, but we follow that traditions. And I came to Israel. And the first day when I just landed, 2 helicopters crashed. And 78, 75, I don't remember exactly the number, young people died. Then having time to time these explosions, terror explosions, only there I understood from inside what is absolutely right decision we had. And from that time, I'm actually never be tired to explain again and again why and who Kazakhstan and why we shut down unilaterally without any kind of pressure this nuclear weapon test site. And we're absolutely right. We would like to bring, not only to show, but to bring all international community, all the future population and generation to the world free of nuclear weapon life, to secure world. That's why we are consequently active in this destination, in these efforts. So we initiated 29th of August as International Day Without Nuclear Tests. It was huge discussion within member states. We are number today 193. Of course, we have P5, we have another de facto some nuclear weapon countries and non-nuclear weapon countries and countries who refused from nuclear weapons. Well, Kazakhstan is not alone. We have some group of such kind of countries, plus nuclear, the whole regions, nuclear weapon-free zones. And 29th of August, the day when we shut down, we closed this nuclear weapon test site. And it was adopted unanimously by General Assembly that International Day, 29th of August, International Day Without Nuclear Test. Another our endeavor to bring a world to the free of nuclear weapon. We signed in Semipalatinsk city 5 Central Asian countries agreement declaring the whole zone free of nuclear weapon. And we all ratified it. And we need now security negative guarantee from P5. Two P5, 2 members of that one agreed with us to give today. But we have to work with another 3 member of...
I think you should name them.
Yes, United States, France, and Great Britain. We are working with these 3 countries in order to receive this negative security guarantee. What does it mean? We need umbrella. We refuse from nuclear weapon. We don't want to use anymore any kind of our even uranium for military purpose. Another step, another gesture toward international community, bringing to peaceful coexistence. We proposed as country to hold international nuclear fuel bank. You can imagine we are number 2 in the world by world deposit of uranium. We know how to enrich, to produce low enriched uranium for civil purposes, for research or for atomic power stations or something like this. But we do everything, and we are on final stage of conclusion agreement with International Atomic Energy Agency. And if we'll sail and if we'll succeed and we'll conclude this agreement, it means in the future no one country could be excused to enrich uranium for civil purposes without control of IAEA, like International Atomic Agency. So it will be less threat for international community that some of countries could use this good excuse, I should say, this excuse to enrich themselves or itself uranium for some kind of purposes, or under saying that this is only for civil purposes. It won't be like this. It will be again for the secure world. This is some of our examples. Of course, we would like to bring all member states to one conclusion, to declare, to adopt Universal Declaration of the World Free of Nuclear Weapons. But it takes a lot of time, a lot of efforts in order to bring everybody to such kind of at least declaration, like one step toward the world free of nuclear weapons. You see, that is my favorite theme, and I am ready to tell you again and again more and more about that one. But I'm going to stop.
Now, I know that before coming here, you were having a secret meeting in your mission on nuclear issues. And you keep these meetings secret from me because you suspect that I am a person who is a nuclear proliferator. And so you don't like me at all. But
Pakistan is member of that 32 group when we had actually nuclear discussion forum.
You will not be able to easily get either the United States or Pakistan.
No, we know, but we are optimists.
Okay, optimism is okay, but you won't succeed. Okay, my second question is that, that having got this extraordinary power of an example where you had all the power and you voluntarily gave it up, and therefore became an ordinary country with just a large size and a lot of women in your colleges and a lot of minerals below ground. And now you are competing for the Security Council.
Yes.
And that is going to be a major thing. Is Kazakhstan, in your judgment, going to win or lose a seat in the Security Council? What is your judgment?
I think that it's up to member states. You know that United States with huge, powerful image, it has only one voice. Pakistan has one voice. San Marino, one city, has one voice. Kiribati has one voice. Small, big countries, never mind. When we come to vote, every member state has only one voice. It depends on everybody, not only from powerful countries. Of course, sometimes powerful countries can say, can wish, can recommend to somebody, but it's impossible to do with 193 countries. So, and you know what, Kazakhstan is, we have some moral rights to at least to take part in election campaign, to be elected as non-permanent seat of Security Council. First of all, Kazakhstan as part of Soviet Union. We have been part of Soviet Union almost 70 years. And of course, Kazakhstan, together with Russia, with another 15 republics. We have been founder of Security Council and of today's modern United Nations. We have some morality. I am the soldier of the Second World War, and my dad was the soldier from the first day fighting against fascism till the last minute of the victory day. So, and this is something personal, that's why I share with you my opinion why Kazakhstan can be elected at least. The second, and that is the most important one, that, as I mentioned, we refused from nuclear weapon status country having this number 4 largest nuclear power in our hands on the moment at the minute when we became independent. This is another one. The third one, because we integrated into international community with transparency and with our open soul and open heart and open eyes. So it means we might be predictable, at least in this part of our development and our activity. And now we would like to follow our deep policy. We are against terrorists. Terrorism, it couldn't bring any peace and happiness in the world.
No, everybody is against terrorism.
Yes, but not yet. Still, we have some definition of terrorism. That is the problem.
What is your definition?
Our definition is terror. It couldn't be accepted in any kind of reasons. We could sit down together. We have many forums, international, regional, bilateral, in order to... We are high literate people. We live in very advanced and well-developed society in the world. So
yes,
we can find some reasons.
Aitimova, if there is injustice in the world, and there are many injustices that I can cite, there is an injustice in the fact of poverty. There are some countries that are super rich. People in Pittsburgh have 2 cars each. People in Pakistan don't even have a bicycle. And so,
of course, probably
that is unjust.
Probably.
Just a minute, slow down. So there is injustice.
We are always arguing like this. I try to reply immediately.
You have injustice in rule of law. You have some countries that are getting away with murder, and nobody does anything about them. And others you criticize. That means there is no rule of law in the world. So this is unjust. So if there is injustice, why do you want me to sit quietly and say, Takbuvai, that's how it is, and I shall sit and admire you? I don't admire you. I'm going to fight you.
Absolutely right. And that is our United Nations. That is our rules. I have nothing personally against Ambassador Kamal, but we can have different opinion, different position, and we are always arguing with each other. But at the important and major issues of the UN agenda, we could come to consensus. We could come to main opinion. But of course, we have these Millennium Development Goals. And for example, my country, we fulfilled this reduction of poverty in my country. We still need a lot to bring welfare to every family. And with this our huge number of mineral resources, but we established all necessary and giving opportunity for all members, citizens of my country to be welfare, to work, to be employed, to use bank credit and loans, to take part in all our level any of our society. And of course, poverty is still is a hot agenda of on the planet. Of course, we now would like, and we are starting to work to implement the outcome document of Rio +20. And in order to prepare, during preparation process, Kazakhstan also showed its interest and opportunity, and we could incorporate the principles of the energy production products and the energy consumption population in order to have some balance. It's impossible to produce more than enough energy in order to not to leave raw materials to your generation, to next generation. Of course, we have to be responsible countries, especially Kazakhstan, like energy producer. That's why we propose to think how we can use our raw materials in order to have balance between production, energy production, and energy consumption. The second one, with Kazakhstan, we started to work on green economy. And for that purpose, we established already Green Bridge Partnership with many countries in Asia and in Europe. We would like to make bridge between know-how and high technologies of green economy from a western part, well-developed countries, to least developing countries or to developing countries in Asia or even beyond Asia. So it means we would like to be helpful using our interest, of course, and using our understanding the world, future of the planet, future of generation.
Let's take a few questions from Pittsburgh. Over to you for questions from your end.
Good afternoon, Ambassador Kamal and Ambassador Aitimova, sorry. I'm a student.
Aitimova, yes.
Aitimova. I'm an international relations student concentrating on East Asia. You mentioned the nuclear capacity and briefly introduced the international effort to ban nuclear weapon tests. So my question is, how should the international community respond to North Korea, given the fact that it has been ignoring the UN's resolution for a long time and it's not a quite rational state? Thank you.
I'm going to ask a supplementary to that.
Yes, please.
And the supplementary is that when it is a question of security, security is more important than nuclear non-proliferation. North Korea has got South Korea with nuclear weapons from the United States. And so, why should North Korea not have nuclear weapons? I am quite happy to be with you and say we should have a nuclear-free world, but you're not going to get it. The United States is not willing to give up its nuclear weapons, full stop. And they say under no conditions will we give up nuclear weapons. And the same is true of the other nuclear weapon states. So why are you concentrating on North Korea? Why don't you concentrate on the main holder of nuclear weapons, which is the United States? Don't you see that is the main contradiction, not North Korea?
I absolutely agree with the young and future ambassador for your excellent question. Actually, we all, the majority of member states, actually working on a ban of any kind of nuclear tests and any kind of development and increasing number of nuclear weapons. From this point of view, United Nations, member states, and my country itself, we are against any kind of this testing and any kind of increasing and having nuclear weapon. You know that we have many international instruments, tools, organizations, and we try to use any kind of instrument, international one, to stop, to make any explosions and developing any kind of nuclear weapon. Otherwise, if we couldn't react negatively to any kind of attempt and endeavor to do such kind of things, in this case, we don't know what's the future of our planet. And as I mentioned, probably not yet, but we suffered so much from nuclear weapon testing. We have a number of cancer, increasing number of cancer among population of Semipalatinsk region. We have some genetical problem on the population within this area. And you have to be sure that some spot of land, after 40 years of testing and nuclear testing, some spot of land, it is impossible to recultivate. So nobody could explain to the population what does it mean, and that's why we all together, and Kazakhstan, one of it, of this group of countries, we always demanding to stop, to reduce, not to increase nuclear weapon, warheads, any kind of another devices in order to use it like military purposes. I think that even for United States or for P5, powerful nuclear weapon states countries, they have a doctrine. Also, they don't refuse from nuclear weapon free world. They declare about it, and they do their best. But you know that member states, even nuclear member states, they have lack transparency still, lack accountability, and lack trust between member states, even they are powerful. That's why probably they don't any unilaterally, any of them not too ready to give up of the nuclear arsenal or reduction of nuclear weapon.
The point of the exercise for the young lady is that before you point fingers at somebody, in this case North Korea, you must remember that 3 fingers are pointing back at you. And those 3 fingers are pointing to the major holders of nuclear weapons. And the major holders are the United States, Russia, Britain, France, plus China, plus now Pakistan, India, and North Korea, which has already exploded 2 weapons. So over to you for a question from your end.
Good evening, ambassadors. I'm a political science student with an interest in Europe and Central Asia. I'm currently taking a class on Central Asia, so my question is for Ambassador Aitimova. You mentioned Kazakhstan's position on terrorism, how they don't tolerate terrorism. Recently, I read in the news that Kazakhstan government launched their initiative to combat terrorism by using the media to display what is real Islam and what is eccentric Islam. And they're using this by showing messages in the media. This can be viewed by me in 2 ways. It's seen as a non-violent effort to combat terrorism, and it's also viewed as a sort of the government telling the people what religion is. I'm wondering how you view this and what your thoughts are. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Actually, we trying to be to establish and to develop all democratic institutions in our country. We adopted all necessary laws for civil society, for NGOs, for any kind of expressions of their positions, and so on, so on. But last year, we found that Islam radical extremists would like to use Kazakhstan as one of the most stable country among many of countries. And we missed these extremist groups, and they started of course, to destroy our stability. And we found that without any kind of restriction of possibility of internet system, mass media, and so who can invite some forces to destroy or to use any possibility to destroy this stability in my country. From this point of view, probably it will be not easier to go on with our previous way to develop. So we established our independent, not bad developing country, and with the establishing of all necessary institutions. We just look behind. 20 years ago, we had nothing at all. Now we have all necessary structures and institutions. We established our financial, banking, governmental structures, using the best practice and the best experience of international community. Of course, we started from, and our device, am I right? Our slogan was economy first, then developing democratic institutions, and we succeeded. And of course, we absolutely on the side when and how we can protect and combat from terrorism and combat terrorism. That's why we would like to go on with our intention not to allow, not to increase the extremist organizations in our country. And I think that it's absolutely essential that we have a special law by which it's forbidden to be financed any kind of organization, especially of among religious organizations, to be financed from abroad, because we would like to protect our multinational country and multi-religious country. You can imagine, for 140 nations and 45 religious denominations, which is absolutely recognized and by law registered in my country. So without stability, without economic development, we couldn't be successful and welfare country in the world. So that's why we would like to have some kind of our national protection of any kind of spreading of extremism and terrorism.
Yes, but you do recognize that in spite of your very laudable views and success in Kazakhstan, that extremism is increasing in the world.
Absolutely. That's why we try to protect.
How are we going to resolve the global increase in extremism and terrorist acts? Because they are increasing and they are spreading. You stop them in one place and they come up in a totally different place, like Hydra. We thought we were trying to stop them in Afghanistan and they spread into Pakistan. We stopped them in Pakistan and they went into East Africa. We stopped them in Somalia, now they've gone into West Africa. So what are we going to do?
I think that we can use any possibility to unite our efforts and jointly protect our population from these terror acts, terrorism, and religious extremism. Otherwise, it is impossible to survive as a lone country, even there is powerful country. Without international involvement, we couldn't adopt necessary law, necessary resolutions, necessary decisions. That's why Kazakhstan is in favor of taking part in unions, in any kind of joint efforts and collective organizations for that purpose.
Let's take another question from Pittsburgh.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Orange. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a little bit sick. I want to build a little bit upon what this young woman said. First, I'd like to ask you, do you think that it would be completely feasible to believe that more countries than just Kazakhstan could possibly denuclearize, consider if other nuclear deterrents didn't exist? For example, if the United States and North Korea didn't have nuclear weapons, kind of balance each other out, do you think that every country would feel safe necessarily not having nuclear weapons, considering that if it's in another country's best interest to defect from some kind of cooperation or some kind of agreement, and build nuclear weapons after agreement is made? If it's reasonable at all to, I don't know, would that? Let me rephrase this question. I'm sorry.
We've got your question. We've got your question, but I want to admire your dress because the temperature in New York is -1 degrees, and so I don't know how you are surviving in Pittsburgh in that off-shoulder.
I was wearing layers, but then I got hot, so I had to take other layers off.
Oh, okay.
Oh boy, you're a hot-blooded person, obviously.
You can reply.
Let me take this question myself and then Ambassador Aitimova can amplify. The problem is that when you come up in a security issue, then security outweighs the desire for nuclear non-proliferation. Security is more important than anything else. And so you take the case of Pakistan. Pakistan went into nuclear weaponry because it was facing a security problem from India next door. And India had achieved nuclear weaponry. So Pakistan said, we can't allow India to steal a march on us. And so we have to go nuclear. Now, India went nuclear because it sees China as nuclear. So it says, China is nuclear, therefore we must be nuclear also in order to defend ourselves against China. China goes nuclear because the United States is nuclear. And it says, the United States is not willing to give up its nuclear weapons, therefore we have to defend ourselves, therefore we have to be nuclear. Now you notice that ultimately, it all boils down back to the United States. If you want nuclear non-proliferation, you can only get it if the main holder of nuclear weapons, which is the United States, is willing to give up nuclear weapons. Otherwise, the other countries, it's a fallout effect. It's a leapfrogging which occurs. Each one affects the other. And that is now the earlier question which was asked by your colleague about North Korea. I asked the North Korean ambassador, why are you testing nuclear weapons? And his reply, the North Koreans don't give straight replies, but his reply to me was, Ambassador Kamal, if Iraq, notice carefully, if Iraq had nuclear weapons, do you think the Americans would have dared invade Iraq? In other words, the North Koreans see nuclear weaponry as an insurance policy against any possible adventurism by Japan or United States or South Korea or anybody else against North Korea. In other words, security overwhelms all other issues. And we are going to discuss this again when we discuss human rights, because security is more important than human rights also. And so I'm sorry, now you can rephrase your question.
Okay, so more to follow up upon that, I wanted to say, I'm sorry, this is weird. Okay, I understand the position of nuclear deterrence in world politics, and I understand the United States was the first and probably the most abusive as far as nuclear weapons goes because they had it first, and I really think that the United States should denuclearize, like you're saying, if there's to be like a nuclear-free world. But in the event that another state, any hostile state, including the United States, one day, like in this ideal world where there are nuclear weapons, decided, hey, let's renuclearize, since everyone else is denuclearized, we could easily abuse them. So the reason how come the United States was able to use nuclear weapons in the first place is because nobody else had them, and like the reason how come the Cold, like if let's say that Russia didn't develop nuclear weapons during the events of the Cold War, like how would that have played out differently if we had that over them and we had just gone on some kind of like nuclear weapon spree, or like I'm being a little bit extreme, I know, but I'm saying in the event that every sovereign state did denuclearize, but every state still had the capability to create nuclear weapons, and one decided it did, let's just say the United States, what would you like use like this international nuclear bank to deter states from doing something like abusing power that way, or like how would you go about preventing them from renuclearizing?
You cannot, because nuclear knowledge, the knowledge, once it has been achieved, it cannot be erased from your memory. And so there are many countries in the world which have nuclear capacity. Japan has it, Germany has it, other countries have it. Japan has 70 tons, I repeat, 70 tons of plutonium in Japan. It takes only 5 kilograms to make a nuclear bomb. And so Japan can make 7,000 nuclear weapons if it wants to. And so the only way to denuclearize is, number one, elect Ambassador Aitimova as the next president of the United States. I tell you, she can do it. So if you believe that the world is a global world, then here is the person to be elected as the next president of the United States, and she will denuclearize the United States. And then everybody else will denuclearize. And we will all have the knowledge, but we will have built up enough mechanisms to prevent actual action, to move from knowledge into implementation. That we can stop at any time. There's no problem with that.
And I would like to add what my friend Ambassador Kamal
Future
just
President
explained.
of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. I love my country, and of course, I'm not going to be so ambitious. By the way, Kazakhstan people, we are actually ambitious people. But I would like just to reply seriously on your question. I think, and we think that it is important to establish nuclear weapon-free zones. We have already in many parts of the world, not only like one country who actually read it from nuclear weapon, but some group of countries, some zones, we have already a nuclear weapon-free zone. If will be guaranteed from this like umbrella, like protection, and promise as it is not to attack the first and not to use nuclear weapon against these countries who refuse from nuclear weapon. It is already some kind of our common joint efforts to defend, to protect, and not to give this temptation to create nuclear, to nuclearize. So, and this is another one. This is one. The second one, there is agreement, NPT agreement, non-proliferation treaty agreement. So, and majority of the countries signed this agreement. Then we have another opportunities to welcome new countries who signed this NPT treaty and who is working on that one. This is some kind of moral support of any kind of endeavor of countries to add its voice with practical steps, refusing from nuclear weapon or joining to this non-proliferation treaty. And of course, we have moral right to press nuclear weapon status countries to reduce its number of nuclear weapons, not to increase. That's why we have some kind of Security Council's instrument, like tools, like sanctions against that country which is not following the international rule of law, if I could say like this, or international agreement. So we have some instruments, we have some international opportunities to protect and not to allow it or to press such kind of it's some 1, 2, 3 countries, it's not more in the world, but majority of the countries we would like to support the world actually free of nuclear weapon, inviting and pressing for 5 countries to reduce the number of this country and to declare this country, this P5, to declare nuclear weapon-free country in the future, not immediately now.
Over to you for a question from your end.
So, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Samina Reza, and I'm in awe of how you explain the measures your government, Ambassador Aitimova, your government has taken to combat terrorism and to enforce your position of nuclear non-proliferation. I would just like to know, what is the nature and the setup of your government systems such so that you have this strong unity in non-proliferation, in combating terrorism? What is it like?
Are you a democracy?
Who, me?
Yes.
Of course, we are a unilateral democratic country with social policy and so on. So,
Is education free?
Absolutely.
Is health
We have,
free?
first of all, we
No, is
took
health free?
absolutely health free and for the first comers.
Yes.
And we have, of course, medical insurance, but not so strong medical insurance like in your country. But what I would like just to tell you, because we have vast territory, density is low, we have to take care about, because we have multinational population, we don't support, that our deep policy, don't support any kind of separatism. We didn't support Chechnya, nevertheless the Muslim, Islam population. We didn't support Uyghur, because China is our huge friendly neighboring country. We didn't support recognition of Ossetia and Abkhazia. Even Russia, huge support, a huge friendly country, and we have actually the longest border between two countries, like 7,000 kilometers of common border, even with this. And we didn't recognize yet Kosovo, because we think it is a Muslim country, and Kazakhstan, majority of us Muslim also. We follow to our deep national policy to not to allow separatism, to keep our country like united, not united, unity country. And that's why we, because we collapsed immediately after the declaring independence, our all industry economy, because we didn't know, because we had been part of Soviet Union, and we did not know how to trade on the international market. We didn't have any kind of partners, communications, or any kind of knowledge about it. So we opened all our economy gates for investments, for consultants, and we started to keep our economy at least not to falling down. So that's why probably we think that we should be like one country with presidential form of management, with government, who is executive board, with parliament. From the beginning, we had one house parliament. Now we have two houses parliament. So we took some kind of governmental structure or institutional structure from the experience of France, United States, and Great Britain. But we found our own structure. And the priorities, it was essential, because we have vast territory, we have open borders, and we started to establish our demilitarization zones, borders with our two huge neighbors and with another neighbors. So now, because we are so close to Afghanistan, and we know what does it mean terrorism. We know the art and the structure of terrorist organizations. That's why we, 6 countries, united our efforts, knowledge, and we had established organization of collective treaty organization. And we established collective forces in order to protect our countries, some Central Asian countries, including Russia, some and other European countries. We are trying to survive and to protect any kind of intervention, like terrorist intervention from a side. So of course we have taken care about our security, because in 2014, United States should take withdraw of their forces, military forces from Afghanistan. And of course, we're just discussing with all interesting member states how to protect our countries from narcotic, from drugs, and from terrorism, from that side also.
Over to you for a question from your end.
I'm sorry?
Question from your end.
Do you have some questions?
Good afternoon, ambassadors. My name is Colin Zoifert. I'm studying politics here. My question is for Ambassador Kamal. You mentioned that the way to stop the existence of nuclear weapons would be for first the United States, which does have by far the lion's share of nuclear weapons, to disarm theirs. But wouldn't this ignore the existing security concerns between other nuclear powers, such as Pakistan and India? Wouldn't there not necessarily be a domino effect because those tensions exist outside of any from the United States or China?
No, Pakistan and India are piddling countries. They are ants in front of the United States. The United States has 2,700 weapons today, and many of them are multiple warheads. So they're only 2,700 multiplied by 3. So there is no comparison. The United States is the #1 nuclear power in the world. Russia is the #2 nuclear power in the world. All the others are small players. China has something like 200 weapons, that's it. Britain has 200 or less. France has 200 or less. India has 200 or less. Pakistan has 200 or less. So there's no comparison. The question is, as long as the United States does not move backwards, and this is where we have a difference of opinion between Ambassador Aitimova and myself, because she says, just bring down the number. I don't believe in bringing down the number. I believe in 0 nuclear weapons. 0.
Absolutely.
As long as you can't bring it down to 0 in the United States, Russia will not come down to 0. China will not come down to 0. India will not come down to 0. And Pakistan will not come down to 0. And then North Korea will not come down to 0. So go for the jugular. The jugular of the nuclear problem is the vast nuclear arsenal of the United States and the fact that they are not even willing to say that we are willing to abandon nuclear weapons. They say all options are on the table, which really means we will use nuclear weapons when necessary. Now, I can tell you, as a practitioner in nuclear weaponry, that nuclear weapons cannot be used. They are the most useless device. They cannot be used. Only one country dared to use them, namely the United States, and has never been able to live down Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because 180,000 civilians, school children, died in Hiroshima, and 120,000 died in Nagasaki. Now that is, you can't live that down in history. And so nuclear weapons cannot be used. They are only a deterrent. And Ambassador Aitimova is right when she says they are not a good deterrent. I can give you better deterrence, she says, by a procedure in which we sit around a table and give up our nuclear weapons and go in for talk, which is dialogue. It's a better way of ensuring security than to build up nuclear deterrence. So I agree with her. But the difference of opinion that we have is that she says, forget the United States, start with Pakistan. And I say, no, I'm not willing for you to start with me. Start with the people who really are the danger to the world, because they say we will use if necessary. That is the problem. I hope I've answered your question. You don't look very happy. Over to you for a question from your end.
Good afternoon, ambassadors. My name is Ron Ria. My question involves the decision-making apparatus that the UN uses. As the consequences of worldwide collaboration and defection become greater with questions like nuclear proliferation and human rights issues and scarcity of food resources, etc., can intergovernmental decision-making, which generally requires unanimity, continue to be effective, or is it necessary to move towards more supranational efforts with such as sovereignty polling or qualified majority voting, as we see the EU has moved towards? So can we continue to, can the United Nations continue to have a valid impact in the world scene with regard to not only nations, but NGOs and other worldwide actors, if there has to be complete unanimity with the voting, or will that have to be laxed and slowed down in order to continue to be effective?
I congratulate you, because this is a very good question, and we should hear Ambassador Aitimova. But if I can ask a supplementary before she answers the question. The United Nations is not an organization. Don't let anybody tell you that it's an institution. The United Nations is only a table with 193 chairs around it. Or at best, it is two tables, one with 5 chairs around it and another with 188 chairs around it. And so nothing is decided by the table itself. Everything is decided by the members sitting on the chairs around the table. They are responsible for all the decisions, including the successes and failures of the UN. Point number one. Point number two, we are based on the Charter. That's a fundamental document. The Charter says that the people around the table are member states, and it defines the member states as being sovereign member states. That is Article 2, Paragraph 7 of the Charter. And so sovereignty is important. And sovereignty means you can't do anything really in the UN without what is called consent. People have to consent. And so without consent, you can't move. And so now your question becomes, how can we get consent if, let us say, one person is holding up the whole consensus? And so should we move towards majority voting? And do we have majority voting? I think, and Ambassador Aitimova will have to give her verdict on this, I don't think the United Nations is a democratic organization at all. It is an organization in which all decisions are taken by 5 countries, full stop. There are only 5 members of the United Nations. Everybody else, including Kazakhstan and Pakistan, are associate members. We are called members, but we are not really members. Power is with the 5, because under the Charter, the only people who can take action, the word action, occurs only once in the Charter. It occurs in Article 42, and it means that only the 5 can take action. The rest of us, we can suggest, but action can only be taken by the 5. And so now the question is, how do we get rid of this? And my answer, of course, is let's get rid of the permanent 5 and have a democratic system in the UN. And that's why I want Ambassador Aitimova to be elected President of the United States and President of the Security Council. But now you can answer the question.
Of course, I disagree with Ambassador Kamal in some opinion. First of all, I think that United Nations is international, the only one, international organization of all member states. Actually, it is impossible to be a member of United Nations not having a state like country, like nation, with all reflecting all principles of Charter of United Nations. This is the only one international podium, the only one international organizations when the most important global challenges have been raised, and by which one we can adopt some kind of resolution of General Assembly. About action, I agree with him that Security Council, this is one body as part of United Nations who can take actions through sanctions resolutions. This is their very strong...
Or declaring war.
Oh, yes, peace, the question of peace or war, peace and security, that is number 1 in the hand of Security Council. That's why P5, like permanent seats of 5 nuclear weapon countries, who has been founder of Security Council and modern United Nations, as I mentioned, including Kazakhstan, because we have been part of Soviet Union. They, from the beginning, they reserved their exclusive some activity and the membership in Security Council. We couldn't do anything now except we try, last 17, 18 years, we have been discussing about the reform of Security Council and how General Assembly, like main body of United Nations, because all member states member of this body, General Assembly, so how our resolution should be accepted by governments as obligation and as commitment, not only as recommendations. That is our today's discussion. And of course, we have many luck, we have many discussions, we are not so happy, with no one country happy with everything in United Nations. But one is true and absolutely fairable. When you vote for something, you have your own independent voice, and no one power country could be influenced, could push me or press me to vote like this or not like that. So this is some kind of democratic behavior of member states, and we are absolutely free in expression of our positions. And when we say that general open debate at the beginning, every September, beginning of new session of General Assembly, this podium absolutely equal, 15 minutes for every member state. Even you are from North Korea or from Iran or from another small country, big country, you have 15 equal opportunity to express whatever as head of state or head of delegation will express. That is or raise up. But majority of the questions and decisions we have to take by consensus or by majority of votes. That is enough democratic way to reply on this question. Thank you.
We have just a couple of minutes left, so we'll take one more question from Pittsburgh. You have the floor.
Earlier you said that, this is for the lady, I forgot your name, Amadi.
Never mind, lady.
You said that you gave the reason why you gave up.
Call her Madam President of the United States.
You said that you gave a reason why you gave up your power, the nuclear, but you never stated who you gave your power to, or what happened to that port, or what happened to those weapons. Did you break them and throw them into the sea, or did you transport them to another country, or did you give them to somebody else? You never stated who you gave your power to, so that's my question.
So, first of all, because we have been part of Soviet Union, Moscow or Soviet Union Communist Party decided to use Kazakhstan's territory like a testing area of nuclear weapons. Any kind, underground and above ground. Underground and above ground. That's why we have been not asked, did we want this nuclear weapon test site or not? Just as happened, they decided. It was super secret decision. Even the heads of our republic, like part of Soviet Union, they had no any kind of full information about that area. That's why when it was happened, the first explosions, nobody even asked the population to leave that area, and so. This is a factual. Response. And when we became independent, we had our own national decision to rid from this nuclear weapon, and because Russian Federation, they inherited all commitments, all obligations, as of course all inherited country, they took all responsibility, and so we, Kazakhstan, allowed, government, my president, allowed Russia to take, for a shortage period of time, to take all their nuclear weapon from our territory to, I don't know where, to Russian Federation. And the rest one, which is impossible to destroy and to take out, we closed it and destroyed it under the auspice, under the oversight of International Atomic Energy Agency. And with the help of United States, with the help of Japan, some European countries, we converted all these labs, which has been and still having on that area of nuclear weapon research labs, we converted it with the help of international community into medical and medicine research labs. And of course, this is our unilateral decision, and we now have moral rights to dictate also to such kind of country like North Korea, like nuclear weapon countries, to reduce and to give us negative security guarantee in order to protect us, because we integrated into international community, like example country, like absolutely not crazy country, to be one part of international community. Thank you so much.
We are out of time. I leave it to you to close this session from your end.
Ambassadors, thank you so much for being with us this week and sharing some really interesting insights into how the UN works. And we'll look forward to seeing Ambassador Kamal again next week. And good luck, Ambassador Aitimova, in the elections for the Security Council.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
My distinguished panelists next week. My panelist next week will be Mr. Jeff Laurenti, the director of the Century Foundation, who is a very prominent member of a think tank and who publishes a journal which is widely read by decision makers in Washington and New York. So we will meet together next week, same time, same place. Thank you all very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.